I call this the December meeting of the North Liberty Board of Trustees to order. Right. For the first item, in addition to the agenda, Director Garner is going to talk about some examples to programs policies from other libraries. So we'll add that to the agenda, either under new business or under your report, wherever you feel it is most easily done.
I just can do it under new business, I think.
Very good. Seeing no one here, no public comment. Our next item of business would be the approval of the November minutes. We'll have a motion to approve.
We don't have enough people here to do it.
Oh, we don't?
No, because Brady wasn't here.
So we don't have a quorum. All right.
Okay.
Then I don't have much to do I?
Not with that. We have to
Nice.
wait and approve them both next month just to be on the safe side.
Yep. We'll defer the approval of the November minutes to the January meeting. Next on the list is our staff introductions. It looks like we have Public Services Librarian Kelly and Assistant Director Jennifer.
Well, hello, everyone. We're happy to be here tonight to give you a behind-the-scenes look at our hiring process. I'm Jennifer Jorderbrecht, the Assistant Director.
And I'm Kelly Forkenbrock, the Public Services Librarian. And we'll go ahead and get started with our agenda. All right, so today we are going to talk about the two main parts of our process when we are selecting part-time staff members, and that's our hiring process and our onboarding process. First, we'll walk you through some behind-the-scenes actions of what we do to prepare for hiring, including reviewing our job posting, determining our interview panel and our questions, conducting pre-interview screens, and then conducting the actual interview, reference follow-up, and final decisions. Then we will go into our onboarding process. We'll give you a look at what those first 2 weeks on the job looks like for our library assistants, as well as our scheduling process for them. We will have time at the end for any questions or comments. So we will begin.
The job postings are reviewed every time we have an opening. There's some great information I pulled from an article on the LinkedIn talent blog that's entitled 5 Must-Dos for Writing Inclusive Job Descriptions by Maxwell Hupper, and you'll see the link in the lower right-hand corner, and we're happy to send those to you as well afterwards if you like. We strive to ensure our postings are culturally competent and inclusive in the terminology used, and that it's listed on multiple platforms in order to attract as diverse candidate pool as possible. We list our job openings on the City of North Liberty, State Library of Iowa, and ARSL job posting sites. They're also shared with the University of Iowa School of Library and Information Science Group and our North Liberty Library LinkedIn and Facebook accounts. We also have paper applications available at the library for potential candidates who are not online. The article also notes that postings should avoid unnecessary corporate jargon and gender-coded words. Studies show that using jargon is one of the biggest barriers keeping talented and young people from applying to entry-level positions. Who outside of library land knows what ILS or ILL means? I'm not going to put anyone on the spot here, but does anyone know what ILS means besides Jenny?
I'm waiting for ILL.
Okay.
I feel like that. I have a better
Very
hint
good.
with that one.
ILS stands for Integrated Library System or Automated Software, and that simply is the software that libraries use to handle the business of the library, like checking materials in and out. ILL, anyone know what that means?
Go ahead.
Interlibrary loan?
Very good, thank you. And it's not ill, but ILL, interlibrary loan, and that's simply the process where we share materials with other libraries and check them in and out. So naturally, we don't want our job postings to be confusing. So it's best not to use words that the general public may not understand. Gender-coded words are certain words like rock star, ninja, or dominate, which might sound cool, but also might be difficult for some candidates to identify with, which in turn might discourage them from applying. This then has a direct impact on whether or not we're able to attract a diverse talent pool. Within that article was another link to a gender decoder tool that analyzes your job description and suggests improvements to make the language more appealing to all applicants. So I put our job posting through that process. And what you'll see on the screen is a sample of our job posting from February 2021. And we actually had a pretty decent job posting. There are 2 words that are highlighted in yellow immediately following 2 words that are crossed out. So running it through that gender decoder suggested just those 2 changes. So we changed the word working from manning and turned dedicated and used dedicated instead of committed, because the thought behind that was using the word committed gives the job posting a slightly feminine stance. And using the word manning naturally gives it a more masculine stance. So now our job posting as is viewed as neutral. And that was just by changing a couple of words, hopefully giving it a more broader appeal to more people.
So jump in if I read an article that if there's words like rock star, or if women don't meet 100% of the requirements, they are very unlikely to apply for the job, where men will apply if they meet like 60% of the requirements.
I'd put that lower.
Crazy.
Thank you. So now you'll see in the overview section of our job descriptions, Jenny asked the staff to periodically review each of our job descriptions to ensure that they align with the work that we're actually doing. I really like this statement. I'll read it for you. All library employees are expected to approach work with the public and for the library through a lens of empathy and equity, and to demonstrate cultural humility. We have added that into our library assistant 1 position, which was our most recent hire, and then we're working on adding that to all of our current job descriptions. And doing this just shows that we're putting the work in and doing what's necessary to be an inclusive workplace and how we provide service to the community in our everyday tasks.
So once we have the job posting finalized and have it posted and we start getting applications coming in, we do set a deadline for all applications. And then once we've reached that deadline, we accumulate the applications. Jen and I get together, we sort through those applications, and we decide on probably the top 5 to 7 applicants. Our job postings usually bring in an average of, I would say, about 25 to 30 applicants. So then we sort through those and we keep a keen eye on especially those who have library experience, those who are library students, and of course those who meet the some of the requirements listed in the job screen, in the job post. And then once we have sorted it down to those top 5 to 7 applicants, we then begin our pre-screen interview calls to these individuals. Now, the objectives of this phone screen are to do a few things. Number 1, we want to make sure that the available hours listed in the job post indeed fits their schedule. The typical part-time position for a library assistant is 10 to 12 hours per week. That is typically a very rigid listing. So we want to make sure that when we're doing our pre-screen that we underscore that it is 10 to 12 hours. And also that it includes most likely evenings and weekends. We absolutely underscore that as well. That's when we find that we need most of our help from our part-time staff. So we make sure of that during the phone screen. Another thing that we make sure of during the phone screen is that they understand that this is a part-time position and that it is a long-term position. That is, this is not a temporary, nor is it a seasonal position. So we want to underscore that during the call. And also we want to bring up any additional discrepancies that we may see in the application. Maybe location. So if they're applying for this job from Washington, D.C., we understand that we have, this is a transient place, so maybe they are moving to the North Liberty area soon. So we want to double check that as well before we move forward into the formal interview process. We gain a lot of additional information from the applicants using follow-up questions such as, When is your earliest start date? That gives us an indication of whether or not, again, they will be able to fit into our schedule and us into their schedule. Also, we like to ask, how did you hear about the position? As Jen mentioned previously, we really try to post a job on a diverse array of platforms and information sites. So it's always interesting to hear where they may have heard about the position so that we can continue to better post for future positions. And then we also ask if they are seeking a permanent position, again, to underscore that this is indeed a permanent position.
So the interview panel format is a fairly new addition to our interviewing process. Previously, Kelly and myself interviewed the open part-time positions, but during our most recent hiring for a library assistant 1 position, we utilized an interview panel style, and that was at the suggestion of a current employee. There's another wonderful Indeed blog article entitled Panel Interviews, Making Them Work Effectively, with the link there, and happy to send that to you as well later. This article provided some general tips to conducting a good panel interview, which we utilized during that round of interviews. With more people involved, you need more structure in your process. After deciding whether a panel interview was even appropriate or not, you then need to decide who to add to your group of interviewers. We realized it would depend on what area the new hire would be working in and who currently on staff would be working most directly with them. It's important to appoint each interviewer a role to help ensure each panelist knows which one will ask which question and who will answer questions from the candidate. Then, when the candidates arrive, whomever was taking the lead lets them know that our interviews are fairly informal and how the time would be spent. Our goal is in creating a welcoming and comfortable environment for every potential new employee. We review our interview questions each time we hire a new employee. We usually end up tweaking something, and listed there are a couple of our current favorite interview questions, especially the what do you consider your superpower? Describe a situation when you had to consider someone's cultural perspective during an interaction, and what steps might the library take to make our current collections and programs better serve our community's diverse residents. So those last 2 were ones we just added this last round. So again, those get reviewed every time. And at this point, we've completed the phone screenings and prepared our interview panel and questions, and we're ready to conduct our formal interviews.
All right. So for the applicants who pass the phone screens, we contact them and set a date for the formal interview. Now, while we prefer an in-person meeting, we do provide a virtual option for specific cases. As a hiring committee, we review the resumes again of the selected individuals who have accepted an interview offer from us. We find key points to address during the interview in advance. So that's the main reason we review that resume again. Lastly, we again finalize the interview questions and how they will be presented. And then we conduct our interview. Now, if an applicant does well during the formal interview, we move on to the next phase. We follow up with the interviewee and procure up to 3 professional references. We call upon these references to ask mainly these 3 questions. Number 1, in what capacity did you work with the applicant, so that we can get a clear idea on what the work relationship was? Describe your experience working with the applicant. And probably the most important one that I like to ask is, would you hire or work with this applicant again? Why or why not? And we do ask for an explanation, not just a standard yes or a standard no. We want to get as much information from the references perspective on the employability of this candidate and why they would ask, why or why not they would ask the applicant to be with the company again. Now, per the feedback from the references, if we deem that that's all positive and we are ready to make an offer, we'll give them a call to extend an offer. And then upon acceptance of the offer, we then roll into our onboarding process. So our typical onboarding process is about 2 weeks. Of course, we will extend that onboarding process for applicants if we feel that, after the second week or even after the first week, we may need to concentrate on other areas. But the typical library assistant who is hired goes through a 2-week onboarding process. During that time, final screenings are done, which includes a drug screen panel and a background check, which is done right here at City Hall. And then we do a training. So after the final screenings come back, hopefully clear, typically about 5 to 7 business days is when we kind of counter that into the onboarding. We then begin our formal onboarding and training. Some of the highlights of our training process include staff one-on-ones. This gives our newly hired library assistants a chance to have 15 minutes meetings with each of our full-time staff, and that also includes 30-minute meetings with our director and assistant director. And this just gives them an opportunity to get an idea of what their colleagues do. We don't want to silo our part-time library assistants into just being part-time workers. We want to empower them, and we think part of that empowerment comes from connecting them directly with full-time staff members, while also giving them an opportunity to kind of tap into some of the other skills that they can offer as library assistants. We also conduct a building tour of the community center, so they get a full tour of the library as well as the community center, as well as the recreation center, so they get to meet some of the folks that work on the other side of the building as well as on the library side. We also have our training manual, which we have in several formats. They will get a physical paper copy of the training manual when they arrive for onboarding. They will also have a PDF of it in their folder on the public drive. And they will have access to the manual in our Niche Academy console. This is a platform that we use for education for our patrons as well as for our internal staff. So they will be able to do interactive onboarding with our training manual. It includes small quizzes in between and also gives them insight into everything that they need to do for their job. Lastly, we do front desk shadowing. I think that this is probably the most comprehensive part of our onboarding onboarding process, because this gives them direct interaction with patrons and their fellow colleagues. So we have them, kind of just sit back and watch a full-time member working the desk for a couple of hours, and then usually around that second week of onboarding, we then let them take the reins. Now, of course, we would never leave them alone at the desk, but we are always there to help. We have 2 computers set up at our front desk, so we are always there to help them and assist them. So that is our onboarding process.
And as the assistant director, I maintain the schedules for all library staff. Our philosophy with scheduling is to be as flexible as we can while still adequately providing coverage for the needs of the library. We recognize all staff have a life and obligations outside of the library. If we can schedule to meet their and our needs, it's a win-win for everyone. In my experience with librarianship, I feel our library goes above and beyond creating a better work-life balance via scheduling. Our staff are our greatest assets, so we work hard to accommodate as much as possible. Scheduling has changed from pre-pandemic times. Oh, the days. I used to schedule literally a year out for all of the staff, full and part-time. The reasoning for that was we respect their time outside of the library, and getting into a set schedule is a preferred option for them. We didn't want to monopolize 40 hours out of a work week for someone who's really realistically working only 12 hours a week for us. The pandemic and library closure to the public has changed that, and at the moment, we're scheduling about a month-to-month basis. My goal in the new year is to be able to do that into chunks of time. So for example, January through May, and then the summer months, and then September through December. We've got January schedules already set, so next week I'm going to start working February through May and work on that. We just keep adjusting as needed. It takes more of my time than it did previously, but I really feel the work done on my end helps to eliminate some stress for the staff and enables them to work schedules that fit into their life. Everyone has busy lives, and our part-time staff are no different. Some of the considerations that I take into account when scheduling include if they are a student, which we usually have multiple staff on the team who are students. So we look at what their semester schedule and classes look like. Also other jobs that they're working. I think most, if not all of our part-timers are working multiple jobs and or are in school. We're fortunate to be close to the Iowa Library School, so we attract applicants with lots of library experience and a good foundation of library knowledge. The downside to that is we're close to the library school and we tend to have part-time staff for a shorter duration than what might be typical as we train them up and out the door. So we're very proud of that and wish them well, but that does necessitate a little more frequent turnover. After health screenings, I connect with them to find out what outside obligations they have so we can work with them. We are currently in a slower time of the year than what summer is, which is usually our busiest time frame. Currently, we're scheduling for a minimum of 3 staff during the evenings and on weekends. Pre-pandemic, we were at 4 staff for nights and weekends. And we never have staff here by themselves at the library, but we do occasionally go down to 2 staffers, and that's only if there's something out of the ordinary, if there was something unexpectedly that came up or a sickness or out of the office with short notice. The type of schedules that we have are work schedules, desk schedules, and program schedules. So a work schedule would be the hours you are actually working at the library, like 8 to 5 or 4 to 8 for our part-timers. Those are entered into the Paycor system, and that's the logo there in orange. That is a scheduling software, which is also available as an app. So staff can take a look at that if they want at night, if they forget when they're working, especially our part-timers. I enter programs that are outside of the typical 8 to 5 time frame, like for nights or weekends or bigger events. For example, our upcoming New Year's Eve program that might have multiple staff needing to work that. We also know conferences, outreach, and meetings that are of a longer duration. We're very busy out in the community and offering programs, but we still need to staff the library to help people coming in through our doors. In the Paycor software, we've also color-coded staff positions and noted programs, so it's easy for staff to see at a glance who's here in the library. Previously, we might look around and it might be pretty quiet, so we really avoided that since we started taking a more look at our scheduling. Staff are responsible for finding their subs on the desk because we utilize the Outlook calendar to do our desk time. So like I work Wednesday 12 to 2 on the desk. So that's a separate schedule that I look at. However, if staff are out unexpectedly or for longer durations like conferences or extended leaves, I try to help coordinate that. It's just easier if I can get that done ahead of time for them. So scheduling is one of those unseen tasks that, if done well, can help your organization's workflow operate more efficiently. And putting the needs of our employees on par with the needs of the library has served us well.
All right, so we would like to open the floor to any questions. Our contact information is here as well if you have any additional questions, but I just wanted to open the floor and see if there are any questions, comments, or concerns.
Did you say that you have done the panel interview for this most recent?
We have,
Okay.
yep.
How do you feel it went?
I think really well because we did, coordinate ahead of time. And so it
Okay.
wasn't just firing questions at the
Right.
candidates. And it brought in another staffer with a different perspective, and we were able to kind of align with what areas we might need focus in. So we'll use that going forward as appropriate.
Good.
And I think it's a great time it's an introduction to another full-time staff member because basically my role is to help manage the part-time staff, but having another person on the panel who they may be helping in the future with events or programming has been beneficial so that they can see the kind of the full encompassing of their job.
Great.
Questions?
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you.
All right,
A
thank
lot
you.
of stuff that goes into it.
I guess.
Keep the very good people coming on Wednesday nights.
Yes, we have a lot of good volunteers too. I forgot to mention that.
That's the best desk shift. All right. Thank you once again. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You guys are not stuck here.
Yeah, you may.
You
may.
can hang out if you want, but you do not have to.
Next up, staff reports.
All right. So financial report.
Mhm.
We are just, we're at 41%. Average is 42% for this time of year. As always, some areas are higher than others. We're sitting really well with personnel, which always makes me happy to see, because that seems to be the area that no matter how many hours we don't have them working, it seems like we're always struggling to keep our personnel on par with the budget. Jen's doing a really good job. That's another thing she didn't mention, is that she needs to balance how many hours we have available but in the budget with the number of hours scheduled. So she does all that, and I'm really grateful that she does. It is not something that I would love. So it's a good team effort on our part. But otherwise, everything, unless you guys have questions, it's looking we're in good shape. I will mention just that we ordered 5 more hotspots. We have grant money to pay for those for a year, so we'll be introducing those shortly here so we'll have 10 in place, which I'm super happy about.
Is that with the new provider or?
They're through TechSoup, the ones that he ordered, so I think it's a little less money. They're like $10 a month for those, I believe.
So we have a mixed bag of providers?
Yeah. I don't know who TechSoup goes through to provide it to us, but we pay it directly to TechSoup. And then if we're good, I can go on with the rest of my report. Just wanted to point out that the annual committee or the committee report is in the packet and is also available online. If you guys had a chance to take a look at it, our numbers are starting to rebound back to pre-COVID times, though they're not there yet. They're getting there. I thought Melanie did a really beautiful job on the report. It's very much modeled after Iowa City's report, and she's like, well, tell them I copied theirs. So when I was there, I showed it to them, and they were very pleased. Actually, Ellsworth, the director, said, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we all did the same report every year, like the same basic structure of it? And I thought it was kind of neat that we did it, but so she was having a hard time thinking of a new way to do it, and I thought it was great. She's always trying to come up with how she's going to present the infographic or the graphics. And then additionally, I included the legislative reception recap. Scott made it to that event. It was a lot of board members and a few council members were invited this time. We've never invited the city council, so that was kind of fun. We did have one of our North Liberty council members, which I appreciated very much. Was there, and we did generate quite a bit of interest. In fact, there was a few people that asked Sam, who basically led this charge to get this going at Iowa City, to create the report that you'll see in your packet. She sent that out to everyone, and I think that was a great thing for them to do, so that the people who weren't able to make it were able to see that. Our typical reason for having it is obviously to connect with our legislators. We have generally had very supportive legislators in office in our little neck of the woods. So it's not like, mostly it's just to make that connection and keep them informed. Unfortunately, it happened to be a week that they were not around. We did not know that. This has been when we've hosted in the past, but pre-pandemic. And then during the pandemic, obviously we had it online. So we were excited to have it back in person, and it just didn't work out for them to be there, but just had my budget meeting today for the library budget, and it looks very promising. I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to meet I tried to keep it a fairly lean request, except like I mentioned, getting one person to full-time status, and then adding the funds to end up with at least 16 hotspots. My hope is that it's going to be more like 20 by the time summer gets here. And then the other biggest piece of that, like I said before, is training. We want to make sure that our training budget is able to accommodate multiple people going to conferences out of state and other things, so that, especially as we're getting more, like our 2 full-time, our supporting positions, Kayla and Danny, we want them to also be able to attend conferences. So it's a lot of people to try to juggle schedules with. Then I mentioned, and Emily has a little bit more about this in the Family Services report, but the IDEA Committee is working on some focus groups that'll happen in the spring. They're working with Laura Gray, who's a consultant and owns a business called Restorative Community Partners. She will be working with the committee and with a couple of representatives from the rec center staff to facilitate 3 focus groups on different targeted areas of the community. The hope being that we can find out where some of the folks that aren't using the library are, the pockets of those people, and what we can do to better serve them, reach some of those folks that aren't necessarily coming in our doors. And they're very excited about it, but it's taking quite a bit of their time too. I proposed that we split the cost. It was quite expensive. And I did propose that we split the cost to the city administrator, and he agreed to do that. So we are paying for part of it. It's beneficial to the whole city. The information we're going to gather there will be beneficial not just to us, but across the board. So, well, it has a little bit of a library focus. We're hoping that it'll benefit more than just us. And then just mentioning, I just attended a 2-day Rural Libraries Summit, which is different from the Association for Rural and Small Libraries. Rural Libraries is an organization that's out of Berea College. And I was just contacted out of the blue on LinkedIn and asked to serve on a panel, to moderate a panel on an affinity panel is what they called it, or just an interest group on advocacy. So I did that. As part of that discussion or part of that summit. And apparently they just liked the stuff I posted on LinkedIn. And so she reached out to me based on that. I thought that was interesting. I've never had that happen before. And then I will be going to New Orleans in January for Libler Next, which is formerly ALA Midwinter, the American Library Association conference. That is being paid for by ARSL as part of my role as upcoming president for that organization. But I will get some time outside to go to attend some of the meetings or trainings, as well as multiple meetings for the organization. Contribution drive started. I don't know if Andrew went to the post office today, but we did already start to get just a little bit of money back from that. We sent out over 900 letters last week, and this is the first year we actually had Alpha Graphics process the mailing for us. We split it with the friends of the library so that nobody had to take the brunt of the costs. I think in the long run, it's going to be very helpful rather than having us do the work in the library, because typically I have our staff folding letters for about a week and stuffing envelopes, and it's a lot of manpower, and it's much more organized to have someone else do it. It was lovely, actually, to just turn it over. And that was at the suggestion of City Hall. I called them to ask them about because we use their postage meter. And they said, have you ever thought about having Alpha Graphics do it? And I was like, I don't know. I thought it would be it's not cheap, but I think it was a better option in the long run as far as using our manpower to do it. I think it's a smarter move. Then just noting that we got a really nice $500 check, and then within a few days a $5,000 check from a patron who walked in and just said they wanted to make a small donation. And I thought that was quite lovely. I actually got a little teary, and she said, "Oh my gosh, do not cry. I did not bring you money so you would cry." When she said small donation, I was not expecting the $5,000 check. And then Shields called within a couple days, and we got a check from them for the Friends of the Library for $3,000. So some good funds are coming in. I think it speaks to people in the community noticing the work that's being done at the library. So I really appreciate it. Those things. And then the next thing is the programming policy, which we can either, I don't know if we want to just go ahead and run through it right now since I'm on that page.
You're on that page. Let's run right through it.
Okay, so we do not have a program policy, and it's something that's been on the radar for multiple years and just sort of stayed on the low end of the radar. I think it's something that we need to address and have in place. So I'm recommending that we add a policy to our thing, which is not normal for me. I prefer to combine policies and take away policies rather than have more. But I do think it's important as we just look at more diversity in what we're doing. I mean, for instance, the idea of a drag queen story time, as you've probably all heard, has happened in other libraries, and it's caused some ruckus in communities where people will come and protest those things, and we want to make sure that we have the work in place to protect us if we decide to go that route, or any types of things that someone might object to that's different. So that's the main reason for it. I did include a couple. I tend to look quite often at West Des Moines and Ames for locally for policies. And then nationally, I have a couple that I look at too. I just pulled a few to include in here so you could just see some of the different models of what they might look like. I really like Ames policy as far as as just reviewing these in very short terms, because we just started discussing this. And I have Iowa Cities in there as well. I hope I included Ames's policy.
You did. It's in
Okay.
there.
I thought I scrolled past it. Anyway, I think Ames does a nice job, and it's very succinct and to the point. So I have sent this out to the staff who do the programming, because I think it's important to have their buy-in on this and have them doing some of the work in writing it. So hoping that next month we can submit to you guys policy for review for approval. That would be that's the timeline right now. I don't know that will get it done that quickly, that turnaround, but I'd like to see us do that. And then the other thing, just item D and E there, are actually just renaming two of our current documents based on stuff from Ames. And one is just changing the title of the request for reconsideration to a statement of concern, which I really like. Then it covers, and of library resources. That covers more than just materials. Right now ours is called, consideration of library materials. I think that doesn't encompass enough. If people have questions, we do want to make that form available and accessible. I think I talked about that before, that some libraries try to bury theirs and hide them, and I don't think that's the right way to do it. We want it to be available for people. We hope that we can just talk through things and not bring it to that point. But if we do, we want to make sure we have it. And then I did, in Ames, they also have a document about how it's addressed. Like what happens if you were to submit a reconsideration form. So I would like to kind of add those in. Basically, as you see on Ames, it would be a little different. So I could bring that back to the board in January as well. If you like. And then the last thing is just, I like the public participation over public comment. That would just be a change. I don't think we'd have to bring that one back, because that's not even that's a procedural document. And that's it. Phew.
Does anyone have any questions? All right. So
All right, cool.
then let's move on to the next item as I scroll down to find it. The policy review, library access for sex offenders against minors policy.
And the main changes to the policy are actually just the he, she to their. I don't even think that we had anything else
I think
necessarily.
that's all I saw.
For changing, the only suggested changes we had there. As I think I've probably mentioned this in the past, that's a legal document. I mean, it's done in part with our city attorney. So I don't think we're ever going to see a lot of major changes unless something were to change with a law that he felt we needed to make a change.
And we'll defer the approval of that until next meeting with a quorum.
We
You have a
we
quorum
can
for
do
that.
quorum for those.
Yeah.
With
We
the
just-
minutes, it's just because I wasn't here last.
Yeah.
You weren't
Yeah.
there. Thank you. I'll have to jot that down on my notes. So given that, do I have a motion to approve the policy?
I make a motion to approve.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. Hearing no nays, the motion to approve the policy is approved.
And then I did include the application for use of the library in here as well. There are some changes that we'd like to recommend based on Amy, who's the chair of the IDEA committee, and myself. Mostly there are things like the word aliases just doesn't sound very friendly, so we thought just changing it to other names used. Also, occupation, like that is really not a question we need to know the answer to. For library, we don't ask anyone else that who comes through our doors, so I don't know why we would need to ask that question to these folks. And then finally, just like, why do you want to use the library? Again, we don't ask that question to people. We don't ask them what they're coming in or why they should be able to use the library. So I don't think that those things are necessary. And then, I mean, the main thing is we want to make sure that someone who's had some very bad crime against children is not using our facility and having close range to children. Whereas if someone, depending on what their charges were, we might be able to consider having them come in. It could be that we specify that they can only come in during certain hours or whatever. But the final note is that I wanted to note for people submitting an application that we're not trying to deny them access. And if we do determine that they can't use the library, then we want to make sure they have some way of getting library materials into their hands. So that's where we suggest that they can still register online and they can designate someone to come in and get materials for them. And call the library and request materials and designate someone to pick them up. So different, and then of course by phone they can always call in if they have something they need an answer to. And then the last piece is just the last thing. The way it was worded before was just like basically if you don't complete this, you're not going to get service. Well, that's not what really nice wording. So I just changed the wording to be a little more friendly.
In the procedure to process these, is that the tiering? Someone is a tier X.
Yeah, I
Vendor.
mean, we've never had someone apply, but yes, I
And
would
it's
assume that we would probably get the city attorney maybe involved and we would review it and determine if we felt that would be something we could allow.
Have any questions on this Appendix B? I guess I could have waited and we could have approved those at the same time.
Okay.
No questions? Do we have anyone that would like to make a motion to approve this appendix?
We'll make a motion to approve appendix.
All right. Do I have a second?
I second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion to approve Appendix B is approved.
Excellent. And then the only other thing that's in the packet that is not, I didn't somehow, I thought I had it in my report, but is just the pictures, renderings of the new information desk
Yeah, there.
and the new acoustic panels that are going on the walls down the hallway, and the colors that we chose, some really bright, vivid, popping colors. So we're pretty excited about that, and that should be. We sent out RFPs on Friday, so that should be coming soon.
How long do you suppose that process will be to swap out that desk?
I don't think it'll be long once they get in there and get it going. Assuming that they would build it off-site and bring it in. And the two smaller desks, I'll be ordering myself. The two movable desks that have the bright pink one there that's actually will be the orange and the turquoise color. And we haven't decided what wording we're going to put on the front of them, but that can come later.
Will the desk at the children's area get the new swanky design, or will it stay the desk that it is?
I think we'll probably be able to order one like this
Nice.
to go over there as well. We've kind of talked about that. I'm hoping, I don't think that they're pricing it that we won't be able to just add that in, even though it's not in this, it's not in the budget for this project.
Got to have continuity.
Hmm.
Terrible if there wasn't continuity.
And those you can get at just about any color you want, so. And that is it.
Right. Do we have any old business that anyone wants to bring up? Nope. We covered our new business in the reports. So I think we are done for the evening. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, a second?
I'll second.
We are done.
Yay.